Now, the next panel will be a hybrid panel. It will be led by Wolfgang Mennel, who will be moderating it, and he will be joined by Alexander Wüst from Binance, Coindex's Kai-Kuljoghis, Enerton's Alireza Siadat, we've seen him yesterday already, Olaf Hannemann from CVVC, and Dr. Sebastian Banescu from QuantStamp. The topic will be, does Germany have a suitable crypto ecosystem for startups and investors?
Now this panel is a bit cozier because it's just 4 of us here. And let me turn around. Kai and Sebastian up there. Now, when I had my first panel 3 CACs ago, I was up at about 7 o'clock on the last day. In the year after that, or the CAC after that, I was up at 5 o'clock on the second day. Now here we are, and it really shows that persistence pays as a founder. We're up even before lunch for this panel. My name is Wolfgang Mennel. I'm the managing partner of Blockchain Founders Group. We are an incubator and an early stage Web3 venture capital firm. Now, I have the pleasure today of hosting a panel which will probably lead to quite some controversial discussion. The title obviously is, does Germany have a suitable crypto ecosystem for startups and investors? And my panel members bring a wealth of experience in the areas as founders, VCs, crypto, and legal experts. Let me just give you a quick introduction. And I need my glasses for that because my panel members have been very active in their former life. Let's start with Alireza to my left, lawyer and partner at Enerton, an independent law firm focused on regulatory law in the financial sector. Alireza probably doesn't need much introduction because you can see him on a variety of panels and the press all the time. If you're in the crypto space, you must have heard his name. And he's especially active when it comes to regulation of crypto assets and civil law treatment of electronic securities. And you're also actively helping to shape the nascent crypto regulation in Germany and Europe as a member of several think tanks and even the European Commission's Blockchain Association, INATBA, and the Blockchain Bundesverband. Alireza. Next is Olaf Hannemann, the co-founder and chief investment officer of CVVC, one of the earliest crypto incubators and venture capital firms in Switzerland. Many know Olaf as a veteran investment banker from JP Morgan, where I believe you've been for over 19 years. But you also have first-hand experience as a founder. And you know what it means to be in a startup with all the ups and downs that it entails. Now, on the very left side, freshly minted, also from JP Morgan, is the new head of regulatory Germany at Binance. Alexander, welcome, Alexander Wüst. He joined Binance from JP Morgan, where you advised security services, payments, and commercial banking business, including the blockchain company Onyx, which belongs to JP Morgan, as I understand. And before that, you worked as an in-house counsel as BNY Mellon, the international custodian bank. Now, online, behind me, I think everybody told me I have to look at the camera, so not behind me. So Kai, I have to look straight ahead, but I don't see you. You are the founder, Kai-Kuljoghis is the founder of Coindex and CEO of Coindex, Germany's first and oldest platform for index-based investing and saving plans. Kai says that he has been in crypto and has been a web entrepreneur long before Web3 was actually a term. So you can tell us later what that actually means in terms of timing. And last but not least, we have Sebastian Banescu, who was held up by a virus yesterday. So thanks very much for still being with us. You're the CEO of Chainproof, the world's first primary insurer for custodial smart contracts and DeFi. And you're also the managing director of QuantStamp, a Web3 security firm. And before your current role, Sebastian worked as a security engineer at BMW, Philips, and Deloitte. Now, before we start talking about ecosystem, what is actually ecosystem? Ecosystem, as we understand it, is sort of the fertility of the ground where a fragile startup idea falls on before it first hatches. So the environment, the motivation, and the protection it receives when a startup makes its first steps into the unknown. And the startup ecosystem can make a huge difference when it comes to attracting talent, venture financing, rapid scaling, and the building of a sustainable business model. So when people think about an ecosystem for founders, you talk about legal environment, the availability of capital, the university and research institutes, like the Frankfurt School where we are today, tax policies, corporations, and even events like the CAC Crypto Conference. Now, crypto, by its own set of rules, is by definition location independent. But some countries have achieved to make a mark as crypto-friendly companies or startup-friendly companies more than others. So let's talk about now if Germany has a suitable crypto ecosystem for startups and investors and what it can do to improve its position. And to kick it off, I'm sending my first question to Olaf here. At which point would you say, is most critical for a crypto startup, and how would you rank Germany in this regard?
So before I answer that, let me just, because it may get controversial, let me just say we like Germany a lot and the potential it has. In fact, in terms of our own progression, we started off in Zug. Our second hub that we opened was in Vaduz. The third one is in Cape Town in Africa, and now we're going to Berlin. So that already tells you something that we are fully convinced of the potential Germany has to offer. Now, in terms of where we are right now, you see a few reports recently. I don't know, many of you may have seen that CoinCup report that also got quoted quite a bit in the media on Germany being ranked most favorable crypto economy globally, number 2 Switzerland, and then some others, and they looked at outlook, tax, regulation, and I also agree with the previous panel. Max made a statement, a flaming statement for the German setup being much better than we believe it is, and I fully agree with that. There's also a KuCoin strategy or review quoting over 40% of Germans are interested to invest in the space. So that's all great. When you look at the stats in terms of what does it mean in practice, you don't see the results as much yet. So when you look, for example, at the percentage holders of actual crypto, Germany doesn't rank in the top 10. When you look at Google searches, so interest to invest going forward, nowhere near on the top 10. When you look at number of exchanges, coins, wallets, I think it's top 8 if I remember correctly, but then on a per capita basis, Singapore and Switzerland blow the lights out, right, on those things. So a lot of stuff is there, but then a lot of stuff is still left to be developed. And in my mind, this can be one of two things plus time. And the one of two things is, one, we as an ecosystem do a poor job of building bridges and convincing people of the potential of that technology. And or two, the German investors, economy, industry, which is also traditionally, historically true, is too risk averse to be early movers, or a combination of the both. So that would be, I guess, my initial observation when you look at the frameworks there, and adoption is lacking.
Thanks very much, Olaf. Alireza, if somebody from outside of Germany comes to your firm and asks you, in which country in Europe should I locate my business, crypto startup, what would you tell him or her?
So, I mean, before I was with Enet, and I was for 5 years with PwC, and I was in the last year when I was still there, I was the so-called ICO lead Europe. So I was taking care of the ICO and crypto initiative of the whole PwC Europe, and I was also a member of the crypto global expert team. And so ever since, I try to advise my clients to take the best location which fits to their business case. And you cannot really say that Germany or Switzerland or let's say Dubai is the best location for a startup. It really depends what is a startup wants to do, what is their target market. This is very important because what many don't understand is that you cannot do regulatory arbitrage by, let's say, I'm going to Switzerland and then Swiss regulation will apply. That's not correct. You really need to look where is your target group, and this is very important. However, I have a very big player from the DeFi sector, and they wanted to come to Germany, and they were telling me, okay, Aloisa, do everything what we can do and come to Germany. It was 2 years ago. And I told them, actually, it's not good for you to come to Germany because the German regulator does not really understand what DeFi is. So it was 2 years ago. I told them to go to Dubai, and they did that, and then many followed from the DeFi sector. And why did I do this? I did it because Dubai was very much developing fast when it comes to taxation, which is very important. So you can see lots of investors located in Dubai because they have tax reliefs. And if you have an investor located in Dubai, you have the source of getting money for your startup, which is very important. And then what also developed, they have centers for crypto, specific centers for crypto, and they have a very nice environment for crypto. And they had lots of events going on during the World Economic, the World Expo. That's the right one. And but at the same time, I would also suggest some to go to Switzerland because Switzerland has still a very good environment when it comes for startups, and this has to do with the way of communication with the regulator in Switzerland. So the FINMA was the first regulator globally which had a hands-on advice for startups on how to set up their business. They were the first ones who developed this categorization of currency token, security token, and utility token, which ever since then developed in a regulatory environment. And these are just some small examples. However, giving the ball over to Alexander, there is also this, what I said once before in one of the webinars, the saying that if you do it in Germany, you can do it everywhere, like Frank Sinatra used to say for New York, and this really applies. I mean, if you really want to become successful from a strategic perspective and you do it in Germany, then you have good chances to do it everywhere, as we can see with Binance, who has now strong goals to settle in Germany.
Aloisa, this will be trending on LinkedIn later. If you can do it in Germany, you can do it everywhere. Alex, building on this, you've spent a lot of your career outside of Germany. You've seen the ecosystem in other countries. What is it that immediately comes to your mind when you compare we talked about fertility of the ground, so the ecosystem, the helpfulness of crypto in Germany?
Thanks for raising this. So I think maybe first of all a quick one on why I've spent most of my time being with very long traditional companies with a highly regulated environment, right? And why I'm now speaking probably on startups. I think that's probably an obvious question. So, I mean, next to being in-house legal counsel for big regulated entities, we spend some time as well giving pro bono advice to legal and social entrepreneurs, which sometimes was quite interesting to see where they're coming from, how they do approach the market in Germany with their ideas. So, and mainly speaking about this from a legal perspective, those companies not necessarily all the time looked at crypto. They had other interests as well. But I mean, there are certain aspects from a legal perspective you can take into consideration and kind of building a case why Germany would be an interesting country, right, to settle in. So, I mean, first of all, there's a market entry, which setting up legal entity here could be quite easy. So being an entrepreneur company, setting up a limited, it's quite easy. You can build up the legal entity structure to support your needs, or you easily go to the market and buy something in, right? And then I think I can echo something what a lot of colleagues said here and on today's panels, right? I mean, there's a lot of existing regulation around. So authorities know that. You have a lot of legal advisors, consultants in the market, they know it, and I think the best case is authorities and legal advisors know each other, so they can speak to each other and kind of further develop ideas, right? And I mean, there as well, following this, there's a lot of transparency, disclosure around application process. I think some people were speaking on this topic earlier, so it's easy to set up the case. This is something entities entering the market here can think about. And then I think most importantly, there's a strong commitment from the legislator in Germany. We have heard a lot of the terms working with sandboxes, but I think we have seen some arguments pro and con sandbox concepts. But literally, I think it's a very big commitment and a big sign to novelty as such, right? So we do not see any pushbacks. We see rather a commitment to disruptive technologies, to disruptive markets. So I think that's finally a good sign. And then coming back to your question, probably, I think it's let me just phrase one more point on this. I think once actually you made the market entry, you made the application, you made all the process, there's still kind of a made in Germany brand, right? So once you made it in Germany, you have a kind of standard, you have built up a trust, and I think we had people earlier saying that, I mean, business follows trust, right? So I think this is all something you would consider if you go into the market, and then finally it's all about the people, right? So having the right education in place, having big companies moving into the market, and helping investors get track on the market, and as well helping education. And this is something which speaks overly for the German market, or could be considered once you enter the market. And then we see obviously the last point of it. Once you made it in Germany, you see the picture. So, I mean, you can use passporting ideas off your license going to other countries in Europe. So I think that's a very positive on Germany.
Business follows trust. Kai, when you set up your company with your co-founder a few years ago, did it ever occur to you to not set up the business in Germany?
So I would say that I agree with many things. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Okay, so I agree with many things, but what I miss in discussions like this is it's on a very abstract level, most of what you guys have said before. I would start very much at the beginning. Try to set up a company that deals, or try to set up a company at all and try to get into a rental contract, like renting an office or opening a bank account. That's a struggle to start with. And now try this and explain to the guy who's supposed to rent you an office or open you a bank account that you're dealing with crypto assets. You will have a very hard time, even if you're Binance. Opening a bank account for your business doesn't really matter what size you are, probably. It goes through connections. So if you're a nobody or you don't have any connections, this will be a really, really hard time. Like, I have had discussions with people that we were trying to rent an office from, and once they heard that we were dealing with Bitcoin and crypto assets, that was an actual problem, right? And so talking about an ecosystem, I can really tell from experience. We started working on CoinDex in 2017, actually set up the company in 2018. So that was what I meant. We started working on CoinDex before Web3 was an actual term, right? So that was something that at least I experienced a little later as a term. We couldn't really tell that the ecosystem grew with it, right? So if you are talking to a bank today in 2022, or if you talk to a bank in 2018, that's a big difference, right? I can remember situations where we talked to board members of big German banks, and they were surprised that there were more crypto assets than Bitcoin, right? And now probably a conversation like that wouldn't happen. I mean, by now probably everyone knows that there's more to crypto than just Bitcoin. But I can say that there are still struggles on way lower levels from an ecosystem perspective when it comes to education around what Web3 and crypto actually is. It's not just this shady Silk Road asset that criminals use, right? And this is something within this bubble that we have in the crypto asset conference here that is clear. But outside of that, it's a whole different thing. And I think this is not being recognized enough. Kai,
is that a special German thing, or is it international?
I mean, I talk to a lot of other market participants, and I see that everyone is interested in entering the German market. It doesn't matter what size they are. May it be a small startup that is comparable to Coindex from South Africa, they are interested in entering the German market. Same thing as with big players from other countries. And I can, at least from what they tell me, say that it's very different. There are some jurisdictions where a company like Coindex could basically do or don't do what they want. Like it's still kind of unregulated. So there, I would say, yeah, it's different. The mindset is a little different. I think it is a very German thing that there are a lot of bureaucratic rules and certain mindsets. And obviously, we have a big financial industry that has certain interests in keeping their positions. And so, yeah, I would think this is a German thing. I'm not saying it is all good or all bad. I mean, as with everything in life, it's not just binary. But there are pros and cons, and I think many of them have been mentioned before. Like once you have set up shop successfully in Germany, that's definitely an advantage. But it's still in 2022, I think, is a hard thing to do and to accomplish.
Well, I can certainly relate. As soon as you put crypto somewhere in your banking account application, chances are that your banking account will be denied, and that even goes for companies like PayPal. But Sebastian, you are the head of not one, but two Web3 companies. What is your experience? What makes your life hard operating in Germany in the Web3 space?
Yeah, so for one, I totally resonate with what Kai just said, because we opened up our German subsidiary last year, and it took somewhere around 9 months to get a tax number. From the point in time where we had the money in the bank and had signed the notary papers to the point where we actually got the tax number and we could issue invoices. So it was incredibly slow.
Is that a Berlin thing?
Also,
sorry, is that a Berlin thing, or because my experience is different in other regions?
We opened the company in Munich, so
Munich,
maybe it's not a Berlin thing. So yeah, that was very hard. The bureaucracy is just incredible. There's so many. It needs to be done via pen and paper. That's really depressing. So yeah, I think that's the first thing that should be solved for startups in this space. Like, do it digitally, no more pen and paper, no more phone calls, do it via email. We're in 2022, like we should be able to do that kind of stuff. And I think that would make things way faster, not even to mention other things. So yeah, the other thing that is hard is finding talent, right? Like we need to find the builders, we need to find the technical people who are willing to build, and many are also in that sphere are also very skeptical when it comes to Web3. So there's definitely a serious need for education from universities, from schools regarding this.
Okay, now the difficulty of hosting a panel on startup ecosystem is always that the general startup ecosystem and the crypto ecosystem is sort of put in the same basket. So here we really like to focus on the crypto part of things. We talked about legislation. We talked about universities. Sebastian, you mentioned, and I mean the Frankfurt School is a prime example of putting blockchain big across their documents and their purposes everywhere. Now, if there was one thing that we should improve in Germany in the crypto startup space, what would it be? I'm coming back to this question, and let's leave legislation out of at the moment. And I know we have two lawyers here, and there's plenty to talk about legislation. What I'm hearing generally is that people are quite positive about what we have in Europe and in Germany regarding legislation. Olaf, you're seeing the various countries: Dubai, Germany, Switzerland, South Africa. What is it? If you were emperor of Germany for one day and you could change one thing, what would you introduce to improve the crypto ecosystem?
find ways to foster international talent transfer and making Germany become more appealing for international talent. So when we look at and by the way, we invest in over 20 different countries in terms of startups, and we really, I mean, I'm with you, Ali Reza, I'm not about, is it, a startup here or there, but are they at the right location for their target audience and the end user market and so on and so forth. But still, when we look at sort of the comparison Germany and Switzerland, you see in Germany, a lot of the large projects are fundamentally German founder teams, German projects, right? Which they're strong, it's great. When you look at Switzerland, 70% of the talent and the project is, I don't want to say imported, but is international teams. So it's a very different base there.
Why is that? What makes a difference?
Well, some of the processes are quicker. We were early. You had Vitalik opening shop in Switzerland. You had some of the leading protocols with their foundations there. You had clear regulation, sorry to say that, from early on. But then you also had some very strong signals, and some of it is more PR than anything else, but it still sets the message from the politicians. So if in the canton of Zug, as a startup, for over 3 years, you can pay your capital contribution account in Bitcoin, not a lot of startups will actually make use of it, but it sends a strong signal to a startup community. We're open for business, we're open for technology, we're open for you. If the former president or federal councillor of Switzerland is joining a early stage VC investing in blockchain startups on their supervisory board, right? That's the equivalent to Angela Merkel joining you guys on the board. That's a strong signal to an ecosystem that they're embracing technology and change and want to drive change, are open for business. So I think it's that messaging and it's the international talent transfer.
I mean, you do have an ex-German minister on your board, so maybe that's a good example. Going back behind me, Kai, Ali Reza, you will be up in a second. What is the one thing you would change? And please focus on crypto ecosystem.
Well, to be completely honest, I don't really think there is one specific thing that I would be able to point out that I would change and snap everything would be better. My personal opinion is that this is kind of a generational thing. I think in the whole crypto and Web3 world, we're still very early. And I think as with internet adoption and many things that came from a digitalization perspective with the internet, this will just take time. Like once, to pick a couple of examples that we talked about earlier, once with the companies lending out offices or with the banks, younger people will come in responsible positions. They will know more about and they will be more educated about these things that we're talking about today. And I think it will just take time to basically grow the ecosystem.
So your theme is education and general knowledge, understanding about Web3.
Yeah.
Sebastian, what would be the one thing you would change?
Yeah, would make blockchain curricula in universities mandatory, and also push the regulators to put way more horsepower, way more resources on regulating crypto. And not in a bad way, but in a way that makes it easy for startups to set up shop.
Okay, thanks very much. Alex, the one thing?
I'm not sure if it's really about change. I think I would probably just encourage to remain passionate, remain interested in topics, still working in the projects you do, because always keep in mind, I mean, things will not change from one day to the other, right? So all the industry that we see that's existing right now is not coming around the corner. It has a very long history. And speaking about history and companies that always, needed to spend a lot of resources, a lot of passion to build up certain structures, they won't really go away, right? So I think we always need to keep that in mind, that there's a long way to go. I think we had people speaking about that going to the institutional side will take some time. So I think it's just a good point to, you know, have people that keep continuing with the work they're doing, keep continuing educating others, build up their structures, and then we see change will come naturally. We see already, we had someone speaking earlier saying, I have no clue how to fax something, so I'm on email or send you something via Twitter or so on. So there's definitely a generation coming that will clean up certain of the heritage struggles we probably see nowadays, and that's kind of limiting the way we do things, like more smarter. We saw in the COVID phase that certain administrative bodies were not able to respond properly. They're sending around Excel sheets via fax, and then the other authority would print them out and type them in again and stuff.
But
right?
that's normal then again. I mean, it's not crypto related, it's general startup related.
It's general, but coming up.
Ali Reza, 15 seconds. What would be your thing that you as the Emperor of Germany would want to change?
So what I would like for Germany to change, it's not really just crypto related, it's the way how authorities communicate with startups. And this has to improve. I mean, it goes to what Sebastian said with the tax. I mean, we have in Germany the digital tax reporting with Elster. However, as you can see from the news, the reporting for those owners who have ground and property just got prolonged to the end of the year because no one was really able to use this tool because it's really, really difficult, and it doesn't make sense to get an advisor, tax advisor, to pay him lots of money just to communicate with the tax authority. This is one example. The second example goes to crypto. We cannot have like crypto custody service providers who applied 2 years ago and are still waiting for the license and cannot really communicate with the regulator directly. This has also to change, in my opinion, even though I'm a big fan of BaFin and I think you can really communicate with them, but this has to happen in a different way and not with a fax, but with a different way, and also maybe also in a language which is international, like English. This is still our advantage to our competitor France, that we can speak English and we should do it. And this has to improve, definitely, the way of communication between the authority and the startups to make the startups choose Germany as their location to be.
Thanks very much. So the overarching theme that I'm hearing is education, knowledge, understanding of the Web3 space, and I think we're at the center of this here at the CAC conference. I always take away business follows trust, so regulation obviously is key. And if you can make your crypto startup in Germany, you can make it everywhere. Thank you very much.